So my book was I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, published in 2018. She was a true crime author, and she personally dedicated like a lot of her free time to finding and searching for the Golden State Killer, which is the one depicted in this book. She actually died 2/3 through writing the book before the killer was identified. Um, so her husband was a comedian, so it also kind of shows like her being at like events, but then like finding out information and going back home and just, kind of her crazy life and trying to find this killer, but also, having a lot of other obligations. Um, the book mainly talks about um, all the different murders that happened. A lot of them are across states. So she's connecting the dots between these murders that are out of state that potentially were overlooked. It also kind of talks about what she thinks the motivation of the killer was or is, and why they're killing in this way and whatnot. And also kind of focuses on McNamara's determination to find this killer. She dedicated an immense amount of time and all her research to just trying to figure out by herself who this killer was. So, the first passage that I picked was talking about one of the murders that happened, and at the time, the woman that was murdered, her husband was in the hospital, so she was home alone. And there's some names, like some of the family names, in it, so it's a little confusing. But it says, Horst's anguish was also tinged with a specific regret. The Rohrbecks were the owners of an enormous military-grade trained German Shepherd named Possum. Horst had suggested that Manuela keep Possum at her house for protection while David was in the hospital, but she declined. It was impossible not to hit rewind and imagine Possum's gaping, scissor bite, saliva dripping from his incisors as he lunged at the intruder, chipping at the lock, scaring him away. So this obviously really caught my attention because, you can imagine being in this situation. You can't really imagine, but, it's crazy to think that just this one small thing could have totally prevented this murder from even happening. If the dog was potentially just in the house, this would have possibly never happened to them. So I thought that was just really upsetting, but also kind of really interesting because things could have just ended up totally different. The second paragraph I decided to choose was McNamara talking about her personal, dedication to finding this killer. So it says, to say I'd like to stop dwelling is beside the point. Sure, I'd love to clear the rot. I'm envious, for example, of people obsessed with Civil War, which brims with details but is contained. In my case, the monsters recede but never vanish. They are long dead and being born as I write. So this one I thought was really gave a lot of perspective to what McNamara was thinking as she was, hunting for this killer and writing this book. Is, she was so obsessed and involved in finding the killer, but it was kind of like an impossible task for her. She's just like an amateur person trying to find, this killer that the police can't find and, has traveled across state lines and has killed so many people. So I just think it really puts into perspective, like, how, I mean, not hopeless, but kind of how, you know, lost but also dedicated she is to finding this person. I overall kind of really enjoyed the book. I thought it was really interesting. Personally, I like true crime stuff, like true crime podcasts, like whatever it may be. I always find it really interesting because obviously serial killers are not like us. I hope not. Um, but I'd probably recommend it to anyone who likes true crime stuff, whether it be books, podcasts, whatever. I really like the way she described the murders. I thought it was like enough detail, but not too much that it was like too disturbing. And honestly, I think even if you're not a huge like true crime fan, I think if you read it, it would be really interesting and enjoyable for anyone. So that's it.